40-star systems bowed to the Dravosi Empire. Their purple-skinned merchants controlled every major trade route in the sector. Their warships patrolled the shipping lanes. Their customs officials decided who could sell, who could buy, and who would starve. Humanity had only been in space for 60 years when their first cargo ships entered Dravosi territory. The humans came with medicine. 3 freighters carried enough antibiotics and vaccines to save a dying human colony on the edge of known space. The colony had suffered a plague. Children were sick. Parents were desperate. The medicine had to arrive within 2 weeks or thousands would die. The Dravosi stopped the ships at their border checkpoint. "Inspection fees," said the customs officer, a tall Dravosi named Drawl. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as he read the cargo manifest. "Medical supplies require special handling. Very expensive." Captain Yuki Tanaka stood calmly before him. She was a small woman with gray hair and steady hands. She had flown cargo ships for 30 years and knew how to deal with difficult officials. "We have already paid the standard transit fees," she said. "The documents are in order." Drawl smiled. His teeth were sharp. "New regulation. Effective today. You must pay again." Yuki paid. She had no choice. Lives depended on that medicine, but the inspections took days, then weeks. The Dravosi officials found new problems with the paperwork. They demanded more fees. They claimed the medicine needed safety testing that could take months. Yuki contacted Earth. She begged for help. Ambassador Petra Volkov flew across half the galaxy to negotiate directly with the Dravosi leadership. Petra was 60 years old. She had spent her life building bridges between species. She believed in diplomacy. She believed that reasonable beings could always find common ground. Grand Overseer Malik received her in his throne room on the Dravosi homeworld. He sat on a chair made of crystal and bone, surrounded by his advisors and nobles. Cameras broadcast the meeting to every Dravosi world. Petra bowed respectfully. "Grand Overseer, I come in peace to discuss a simple matter. Human cargo ships carry medicine for sick colonists. We ask only for fair passage through your space." Malik leaned forward. His face showed amusement. "Fair passage? You are new to this galaxy, little human. There is no fair. There is only power. Surely we can reach an agreement." "Agreement?" Malik laughed. The sound echoed through the throne room. His nobles laughed with him. "You come to my empire and speak of agreements? You are insects. Forgetful insects who will be crushed and forgotten." He waved his hand dismissively. "Your ships are now property of the Dravosi Empire. The medicine will be sold. The profits will fill our treasury. This is how the galaxy works. The strong take. The weak weep." Petra did not argue. She did not shout or threaten. She simply activated a small recording device on her wrist, capturing every word and every face in that room. "I understand," she said quietly. "Thank you for your time, Grand Overseer." Malik watched her go with contempt. He turned to his advisors. "Tell the other species what happened here today. Let them see how we treat those who challenge Dravosi authority." The recording spread across Dravosi space. Millions watched and laughed at the small human woman who had been so easily humiliated. Other alien species watched too, but they did not laugh. They had seen this before. They knew what Dravosi cruelty looked like, but they also noticed something the Dravosi missed. They noticed how calmly Petra had accepted the insult. They noticed how carefully she had recorded everything. They noticed the quiet look in her eyes as she walked away. The Fenari, an ancient trading species, sent a private message to their human contacts. "We are sorry for your loss. If you need allies in the future, remember who stood silent while you suffered." The Thelians, who had once been conquered by the Dravosi, sent supplies to the dying human colony through back channels. The human colony survived. Barely. The medicine arrived too late for many, but enough lived to rebuild. On Earth, Petra Volkov presented her report to the United Nations Space Council. The recording played on every screen. The faces of Malik and his laughing nobles burned into human memory. "What do we do?" asked one council member. "We cannot fight them. Their fleet is 10 times larger than ours." Petra sat quietly for a long moment. Then she spoke. "We do nothing. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not this year, or even this decade. But we remember. We record every name, every face, every insult. We build our strength quietly. We make friends with those they have wronged. We wait." "Wait for what?" asked another member. Petra looked at the frozen image of Grand Overseer Malik on the screen. His mouth was open in laughter. His eyes showed nothing but contempt for the forgetful insects. "We wait until they have forgotten us completely," Petra said, "and then we remind them why that was a mistake." The council approved her plan that day. A special office was created, hidden deep in the government. Its purpose was simple: remember everything. Track every wrong. Build connections. Prepare. 17 years would pass. The Dravosi would grow comfortable. They would continue their cruelty, never giving the humans a second thought. They had no idea what was coming, because humans never forget, and they never forgive unprovoked cruelty. 17 years changed many things in the galaxy, but the Dravosi Empire changed least of all. Their ships still patrolled the trade lanes. Their officials still demanded bribes. Their nobles still laughed at species they considered beneath them. Ren was born 3 years after the human incident. He grew up hearing stories about the forgetful insects who had dared to challenge Dravosi authority. The recording of Ambassador Volkov's humiliation still played on entertainment channels as a comedy piece. Now Ren was a young intelligence officer, fresh from the academy and eager to prove himself. His first assignment was boring, reviewing old case files and updating security records. Nobody important wanted the job, so it fell to him that he found the human file buried under thousands of others. It was marked as closed and unimportant, but something about it caught his attention. The file showed that humans had completely avoided Dravosi space after the incident. They had not protested. They had not complained to galactic authorities. They had simply disappeared from Dravosi trade routes. Most species would have returned eventually. The Dravosi controlled the fastest paths between star systems. Avoiding them meant longer journeys and higher costs. Everyone came back in the end, but humans had not come back. Not once in 17 years. Ren began digging deeper. He discovered that humans had done something unexpected. Instead of accepting the longer routes as a loss, they had invested heavily in developing new paths through space that other empires had ignored. These were difficult routes. They passed through asteroid fields and nebulae. They required new navigation technology. They cost enormous amounts of money and time to establish. But now, 17 years later, those routes were complete. And they were thriving. Ren found trade records showing that dozens of species had started using human-established routes instead of Dravosi ones. The Thelians, the Fenari, the Urathi, even the Krathani, who had no love for humans, were quietly shifting their business away from Dravosi space. Why would they do this? The Dravosi routes were still faster. Ren kept searching. He found financial records that made his blood run cold. Human corporations, hidden behind layers of fake companies and false names, had been buying Dravosi debt for years. They now owned significant portions of loans owed by Dravosi banks, Dravosi nobles, even Dravosi government agencies. They had been funding opposition politicians in Dravosi elections. Small donations, impossible to trace, but adding up to millions over time. They had been offering better trade deals to every species the Dravosi had ever wronged. Not just better prices, but better treatment. Human merchants were famously polite. They remembered names. They kept their promises. Ren compiled his findings into a report and brought it to his supervisor. "You are seeing patterns where none exist," said Commander Voss, barely glancing at the data. "Humans are primitive. They lack the intelligence for such plans. But the evidence is coincidence." The Grand Overseer himself declared them forgetful insects. "Are you saying he was wrong?" Ren backed down. He was too junior to argue with his superiors. But he kept watching. He kept collecting data. Meanwhile, on a small human space station in neutral territory, an elderly woman reviewed a holographic display. Petra Volkov was 81 years old now. Her hair was white. Her hands trembled slightly, but her mind was sharp as ever. The display showed the current state of the plan she had set in motion 17 years ago. Green lights covered most of the board. Trade routes established. Debts acquired. Alliances formed. Political networks built. Her assistant, a young man named Daniel Okonjo, stood beside her. "The final phase is ready," he said. "We can begin whenever you give the order." Petra studied the display. She thought about the colonists who had died waiting for medicine. She thought about the laughter in Malik's throne room. She thought about 17 years of patient work. "Not yet," she said. "Let them grow more comfortable. Let them forget us completely. The fall is harder when you do not see it coming." Daniel nodded. He had learned patience from her. Their entire organization had learned patience. Back in Dravosi space, Ren continued his investigation despite his superior's dismissal. He tracked human activities across hundreds of star systems. He built charts and graphs showing the slow, steady growth of human influence. One night, he finally saw the complete picture that IT was not an invasion. It was not even an attack. It was a trap that had been building for almost 2 decades. The Dravosi Empire was surrounded by enemies they had created, debts they had forgotten, and a species they had dismissed as insignificant. Ren tried one more time to warn his superiors. He sent his report directly to Grand Overseer Malik's office. The response came quickly. Report received. No action required. Focus on real threats. Ren sat in his small office, staring at the dismissal. He wondered if anyone would listen before it was too late. Across the galaxy, Petra Volkov smiled at her display. Now, she said quietly. Begin. The first domino was about to fall. The first sign of trouble came from the Thelian Merchant Consortium. For 200 years, they had shipped rare crystals through Dravosi space. Their contracts were ancient and profitable. No one expected them to change. But one morning, the Thelians simply announced they were ending the partnership. No explanation, no negotiation, just a polite notice and a final payment. The Dravosi trade minister was confused but not worried. The Thelians were one client among hundreds. Their loss meant little. Then the Urathi Mining Guild raised their prices. They claimed increased production costs made the old rates impossible to maintain. The Dravosi had bought Urathi minerals at discount prices for decades, using their military power to pressure the smaller species into unfair deals. Now the Urathi wanted market rates. Nothing unreasonable, just fair prices. But fair prices meant Dravosi factories would lose their competitive advantage. A week later, the Finari Central Bank called in a loan. The debt was nearly a century old, taken out by a Dravosi noble family to fund their trading fleet. The terms allowed the bank to demand full repayment at any time that N01 had expected them to actually use that clause. The noble family scrambled to find the money. They failed. Their assets were seized. Ren watched these events with growing horror. He saw the pattern clearly. Each incident seemed unconnected. Different species, different industries, different reasons. But the timing was impossible to ignore. He dove into the financial records, tracing ownership chains and corporate structures. Behind the Thelian decision, he found investment from a human shipping company. Behind the Urathi price increase, he found a human firm that had recently become their largest customer and was now buying elsewhere. Behind the Finari loan call, he found that the debt had been purchased by a human bank 3 years ago. The humans were pulling strings across the galaxy, and no one in Dravosi leadership would believe him. Grand Overseer Malik finally noticed the problems when food shipments started arriving late. The Dravosi homeworld imported most of its grain from agricultural colonies. Those colonies depended on fertilizer from off-world suppliers. The largest fertilizer supplier had been quietly acquired by a human agricultural corporation 5 years ago. No one had paid attention at the time. It seemed like a minor business deal. Now that corporation announced it was redirecting shipments to other customers who offered better prices. The contracts allowed for this. Everything was legal. The Dravosi colonies ran out of fertilizer. Crops failed. Food prices skyrocketed. Riots broke out on 3 worlds as hungry citizens demanded answers. Malik finally summoned Ren to his throne room. "You wrote reports about the humans," Malik said. His voice was tired. He looked old now. His purple skin faded and lined. "Tell me what you know." Ren explained everything. The trade routes, the debts, the political funding, the slow, patient construction of a trap that had taken 17 years to build. Malik listened in silence. When Ren finished, the Grand Overseer sat very still. "Contact the humans," he finally said. "We will negotiate." Ren was sent to neutral space to meet with human representatives. He expected anger. He expected demands. He expected threats. Instead, he found a polite young man named Daniel Okonjo who welcomed him warmly. "We are so pleased you reached out," Daniel said, smiling. "The Dravosi Empire has always been an important part of galactic trade. We would love to discuss ways to improve our relationship." "Your companies are strangling our economy," Ren said bluntly. "Your allies are abandoning us. Your banks are calling in our debts." Daniel's smile never wavered. Those are private business decisions. We cannot control what independent corporations choose to do. Surely you understand how free markets work. You are doing this deliberately. Doing what deliberately? We are simply conducting business. Perhaps the Dravosi Empire needs to adapt to changing market conditions. Ren stared at him. He saw no hatred in Daniel's eyes. No anger. Just calm, professional pleasantness. What do you want? Ren asked. Want? We want nothing. We are happy to discuss trade agreements, investment opportunities, diplomatic relations. But these things take time. Perhaps we could schedule a meeting next month? Or the month after? We are very busy, you understand. The negotiations went nowhere. Every meeting was delayed. Every agreement fell apart over minor details. Every promise dissolved into bureaucratic complications. Ren returned home with nothing. Malik raged and threatened, but there was nothing to strike at. The humans had no armies at their borders. They made no demands. They simply smiled and conducted business elsewhere. And slowly, steadily, the Dravosi Empire began to starve. Ren remembered something his grandmother had once told him about humans. She had traded with them long ago, before the incident. She had said they were strange creatures who never showed their anger. They smile when they hate you, she had warned. They are polite while they destroy you. Never trust a smiling human. Ren finally understood what she meant. The humans were not attacking the Dravosi Empire. They were simply letting it collapse under the weight of its own cruelty, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Hungry people do not stay quiet for long. The food shortages spread from the outer colonies to the core worlds. Families who had lived comfortably for generations now waited in lines for basic supplies. Children went to bed with empty stomachs. The Dravosi people began asking questions. Why were the trade routes failing? Why were their allies abandoning them? Why could the mighty empire not feed its own citizens? Grand Overseer Malik had no answers. He blamed foreign enemies and internal traitors. He made speeches about Dravosi's strength and unity. But words did not fill empty bellies. Ren was called to another meeting with the humans. This time, Daniel Okonjo brought him to a conference room on a neutral station. The room was simple and clean. A holographic display covered one wall. I want to show you something, Daniel said pleasantly. He activated the display. A map appeared, showing the entire Dravosi trade network. Red lines indicated closed routes. Yellow lines showed struggling connections. Green lines marked healthy trade, and there were very few green lines left. This is your empire 6 months ago, Daniel said. He pressed a button. The map changed, showing more red, less green. This is today. Another button. This is our projection for next year. The final map was almost entirely red. The Dravosi Empire stood alone, cut off from the galactic economy. Ren stared at the images. You planned this for 17 years. 18, actually. We started planning before Ambassador Volkov even met your Grand Overseer. We just needed the right motivation to implement. Daniel's smile remained steady. Your leader provided that motivation when he called us forgetful insects. This is revenge. This is consequence. There is a difference. Daniel walked to the display and traced the web of connections. Every species on this map was wronged by the Dravosi at some point. You stole from them, threatened them, humiliated them. We simply gave them an alternative, a way to trade without bowing to your empire. You could have destroyed us with warships, Ren said. It would have been faster. Daniel laughed softly. Destruction fades from memory. Empires fall and rise again. But humiliation? Economic collapse? Watching everything you built crumble while you stand helpless? He shook his head. That is remembered forever. Your Grand Overseer taught us that lesson, he continued. He wanted to humiliate us, to make an example of us. We learned. We learned very well. Ren sat in silence for a long moment. He thought about his homeworld. He thought about the hungry children and the failing factories. He thought about his own family, struggling to find food. What do you want? He asked finally. There must be something. Name your price. Daniel considered this. We want nothing from your empire. The debt has already been paid, or rather, it is being paid right now. But if you are asking what would make things better, he paused. Perhaps your people should consider new leadership. Leaders who understand that cruelty has consequences. That sounds like a threat. It sounds like advice. What you do with it is your choice. Daniel stood and offered his hand in the human gesture of farewell. Thank you for meeting with me, Ren. I hope your people find a path forward. Truly, I do. Ren did not shake his hand. He walked out of the room and back to his ship, carrying the weight of everything he had learned. Back on the Dravosi homeworld, he found chaos. The military was demanding action. Nobles were blaming each other. The public was growing angrier by the day. Grand Overseer Malik called an emergency council meeting. Ren was summoned to report on his negotiations. The humans refused to bargain, Ren said carefully. They claim they have done nothing wrong. They say the market has simply changed. Malik slammed his fist on the table. Then we will change it back. We will remind the galaxy why they fear us. The military commanders nodded eagerly. They had been waiting for permission to strike. If we attack human targets, they will have a reason to respond openly, Ren warned. Right now they are fighting us with money and trade. If we give them an excuse for war, silence. Malik's eyes blazed. You would have us bow to insects? You would have us surrender without a fight? Ren fell silent. He had tried to warn them. That was all he could do. 3 days later, Dravosi warships attacked a human border station. The station was small, mostly a trading post and refueling point. 47 humans died in the assault. The Dravosi commanders broadcast their victory across the galaxy. They had struck back against the insects. They had proven that Dravosi power still mattered. The galaxy waited for human retaliation. Everyone expected a counterattack within days. But nothing happened. 1 week passed. Then 2. Then a month. The humans issued diplomatic protests but took no military action. Malik declared victory. They are cowards, he announced. They talk of economics and trade, but when faced with true strength, they run and hide. Ren knew better. He had seen Daniel's calm smile. He had seen the careful planning behind 17 years of preparation. The humans were not hiding. They were waiting, and when they finally moved, it would not be in any way the Dravosi expected. 3 months of silence made the Dravosi confident. Grand Overseer Malik gave speeches about human cowardice. Military parades celebrated the glorious victory at the border station. The official story said that humanity had learned their place. Ren watched the celebrations with growing dread. He knew this was wrong. Everything about it felt wrong. Humans did not run from fights. They had faced extinction-level threats on their own planet and survived. They did not fear death. Why were they silent? The answer came on a quiet evening when Ren was working late in his office. His communication screen flickered to life. A message appeared from an anonymous source. Watch the news, it said. Nothing else. Ren switched to the main broadcast channel. At first, he saw nothing unusual. A reporter was discussing weather patterns on the agricultural colonies. Then the emergency alert appeared. The screen changed to show the private estate of Admiral Grell, one of the commanders who had led the attack on the human station. Armed security forces surrounded the property. Government investigators were carrying boxes of evidence into waiting vehicles. The reporter spoke quickly, barely keeping up with the developing story. Financial records obtained from an anonymous source show that Admiral Grell has been stealing military funds for decades. The evidence includes bank transfers, forged documents, and recorded conversations with criminal organizations. Ren stared at the screen. This was impossible. Grell was one of the most respected officers in the Empire, but the evidence was overwhelming. Every transaction was documented. Every crime was proven beyond doubt. Within hours, Grell was arrested. His military career ended in disgrace. His family name, which had been honored for centuries, became a symbol of corruption. The next day, another noble fell. Lord Das, who had voted enthusiastically for the attack on humans, was exposed as a tax cheat who had hidden billions in illegal accounts. His estates were seized. His children fled in shame. Day after day, the revelations continued. Every Dravosi leader who had supported the attack found their secrets exposed. Corruption, theft, abuse of power, hidden crimes that had been buried for generations suddenly appeared in public view. Human ships had appeared near each target, but they never fired a weapon. They simply broadcast the evidence. They let the Dravosi public see the truth about their leaders. Ren finally understood. The humans had not been waiting to attack. They had been gathering information. For months, perhaps for years, they had been collecting secrets. Bribes paid. Laws broken. Victims silenced. Now they were releasing that information at precisely the right moment to cause maximum damage. Grand Overseer Malik watched his government collapse around him. His allies abandoned him. His supporters were arrested or fled. His own generals began questioning whether he should remain in power. Find them, he screamed at his intelligence officers. Find the source of these leaks. But the sources were everywhere and nowhere. The information came through encrypted channels that could not be traced. It spread through news networks that could not be silenced. It reached every corner of the empire. The public, already angry about food shortages and economic collapse, now had proof that their leaders were criminals. Protests erupted on every world. Statues of Dravosi heroes were torn down. Government buildings burned. Malik tried to blame the humans, but it did not matter. The evidence was real. The crimes were real. The humans had not created the corruption. They had simply revealed it. 3 weeks after the first exposure, Malik's own generals came to arrest him. They had received a final package of evidence from the anonymous source. It showed Malik personally ordering the theft of humanitarian supplies, including, ironically, medicine meant for sick colonists. The connection was not lost on anyone. Malik had stolen medicine from humans 18 years ago. Now evidence of that crime, along with hundreds of others, had destroyed him. Ren was in the room when the generals took Malik away. The old Grand Overseer looked broken. His purple skin had turned gray. His 4 eyes were empty. They said we would forget, Malik whispered as he passed Ren. They said we would crush them and forget. But they remembered everything. Every word. Every face. Every laugh. Ren said nothing. There was nothing to say. Across the galaxy, on the same small station where everything had begun, Petra Volkov watched the news broadcasts. She was 82 now. Her doctors said she had months left to live. But she had lived long enough to see this day. Daniel Okonjo stood beside her. It is done, he said quietly. Malik has been arrested. The others are facing trials. The empire is fragmenting. Petra nodded slowly. She looked at a small object on her desk, the recording device she had carried into Malik's throne room 18 years ago. He called us forgetful insects, she said. He thought humiliation was a weapon only the strong could use. She smiled, but there was no joy in it. We taught him otherwise. What happens now? Daniel asked. Now we rebuild. We help the species they oppressed. We show the galaxy that humanity does not seek conquest, only justice. She looked at the stars through her window. And we remember, always remember, so that no one ever makes this mistake again. The Dravosi Empire had fallen, not to weapons, not to armies, but to patience, memory, and the slow, unstoppable weight of truth. 5 years changed the galaxy more than the previous 5 centuries. The Dravosi Empire shattered into a dozen smaller states, each struggling to rebuild from the ruins of their former glory. Former colonies became independent nations. Former subjects became free citizens. Ren survived the collapse. He had never been corrupt, never participated in the crimes that brought down his leaders. When the new governments formed, they needed administrators who understood how systems worked. Ren became a minor official in a reformed territory that had once been the heart of the empire. He never forgot what he had witnessed. He taught his children about it. He wrote reports for future generations. He wanted everyone to understand what had happened and why. The humans, true to their word, did not conquer the fallen Dravosi territories. They offered trade agreements at fair prices. They sent humanitarian aid to starving worlds. They helped rebuild what had been destroyed. Some called this mercy. Others called it strategy. Ren believed it was both, and something more. The humans were making an example, but not through cruelty. They were showing the galaxy that power could be used for building instead of breaking. On the 5th anniversary of the Empire's fall, Ren attended a galactic summit on a neutral space station. Representatives from 100 species gathered to discuss trade, security, and cooperation. Humans moved through the crowd easily, shaking hands and making deals. Ren watched them carefully. They seemed so ordinary, soft-skinned and fragile, short-lived and emotional. Nothing about them suggested the patient, methodical vengeance he had witnessed. That was perhaps the most frightening thing about them. During a break in the meetings, Ren saw something that made his blood freeze. That a young Krathani diplomat was speaking with a human trade envoy. The Krathani were a proud species with sharp tongues and little respect for others. This particular diplomat seemed to be enjoying himself at the human's expense. Your culture is so primitive, the Krathani said loudly, making sure others could hear. You still measure time by the rotation of a single planet. You still eat the flesh of dead animals. Truly, you are barely civilized. The human envoy, a middle-aged woman with patient eyes, simply smiled. She said nothing in response to the insults. She just listened politely, nodded occasionally, and let the Krathani speak. When he finally finished, she pulled out a small notebook and wrote something down. Then she thanked him for his interesting perspective and walked away. The Krathani laughed and turned to his companions, pleased with himself. Ren felt his stomach twist. He had seen this before. The calm acceptance. The quiet recording. The patient smiled. He approached the Krathani diplomat after the human had left. "I would apologize to them if I were you," Ren said quietly. The Krathani looked at him with confusion. Apologize? For what? They did not even argue. They are clearly weak. They are not weak, Ren said. They are patient. There is a very important difference. And what would they do? Attack me? Start a war over some words. Ren thought about the Dravosi Empire. He thought about Grand Overseer Malik, now rotting in a prison cell. He thought about the noble families destroyed by secrets they had forgotten they ever had. I do not know what they would do, Ren admitted. That is the terrifying part. You will not know either. Not today. Not next year. Maybe not for a decade. But one day, when you have forgotten this moment completely, something will go wrong in your life. A deal will fall through. A secret will be exposed. An opportunity will vanish. The Krathani shifted uncomfortably. You are trying to scare me. I am trying to warn you. I watched the Dravosi Empire fall. We were powerful. We had the largest fleet in the sector. We had wealth beyond measure. And we were brought down by a species we called insects. Ren leaned closer. Do you know how long they planned their revenge? 18 years. They waited 18 years. They remembered every insult, every wrong, every laughing face. And when they finally struck, we never saw it coming. The Krathani diplomat was no longer laughing. His scales had paled slightly. Humans do not get angry, Ren continued. They get patient. And their patience is the most dangerous thing in this galaxy. They will smile while they destroy you. They will be polite as they tear apart everything you have built. And you will not understand what is happening until it is far too late. That night, the Krathani sent a private message to the human delegation. It was a formal apology for any offense his words might have caused. He claimed he had been tired and spoke carelessly. He hoped they could move forward as friends. The human envoy responded with a gracious message accepting his apology. She looked forward to working together in the future. Somewhere in the station, she crossed a name off her list and closed her notebook. The story of humanity's revenge against the Dravosi Empire spread across the galaxy. It became a lesson taught in diplomatic schools. It became a warning whispered in trading halls. It became a proverb repeated by species who had learned it the hard way. Never wrong a human unless you plan to watch your back for the rest of your civilization's existence. They never forget. They never forgive unprovoked cruelty. And their payback always hits when you least expect it. Ren lived for many more years. He watched humanity grow from a minor species into a major galactic power, not through conquest, but through trade, diplomacy, and an unshakable reputation. Everyone knew that humans were friendly. Everyone knew that humans were polite. Everyone knew that humans would help you if you were in trouble, and everyone knew that you should never, ever make them your enemy. Because somewhere, in some quiet office, a human was always keeping records, and the books were always balanced in the end.